Hello everyone and welcome to our weekly highlight show, GridVision Weekly. This week we're going to cover the last 2 weeks of NIS action as we had a double dose of road courses. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below as well as support us on Patreon. Our link is in the description. Let's jump straight into NIS action from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're going to kick off our action on lap number 21 as leader Adam Williams overcooks the entry of turn number 12. He struggles to get around a lap car on entry and goes off into the grass. That gives Andrew Dyson in the one car an opportunity to slip by for the lead into turn number 13. Unfortunately, Andrew could not stay there for long. Our next highlight comes on lap number 25 as Andrew Dyson dives to the inside of lap car Jose Acosta into the dreaded turn 7. Acosta doesn't use all the track on exit and sends our race leader through the grass and down the running order. I really don't know what Acosta was thinking there as he cost Dyson a chance for the win. We're going to skip ahead to the final lap as we see the beneficiary of Williams and Dyson's misfortunes. That driver was Rodrigo Narvaez, as he was the only one of the leaders to run a clean race from start to finish. I was a little worried that the pack of lap cars would cost Narvaez as well, but he was intelligent enough to not push the issue with lap traffic and came through to the line to win the NIS Open race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Race number 24 of our 36 race season saw an SOF of 2,614. Sunday morning's running of the NIS Open was actually the highest SOF of the week, and the winner of that race was Jacob Schneider. The top 12 finishing positions of our broadcasted running was first place Rodrigo Narvaez, second Andrew Dyson, third Adam Williams. The rest of the top 12, fourth Neil Pearson, fifth the Butcher Lamperti. Toga Hisada was in sixth place, seventh place was Abner Acosta, eighth Jonathan Oshelin, ninth Sean Conklin, 10th place was JR Borborema, followed by John Payson in 11th and Justin Lowery in 12th. Now we're going to jump into our highlights from our second road course race in a row from Watkins Glen International. This race ended up being the Garrett Maines show as the driver of the number 1 Ryko Performance Mustang started the race in P7 and had somehow managed to take the lead entering the final corner of the first lap. Here we see Maines dive to the outside of race leader Neil Pearson on the entry to turn number 6. Pearson puts up as much of a fight as he could, but Maines was just too strong for Pearson to handle in turn 7. Garrett Maines takes the lead coming out of the corner and never looks back. We're going to jump all the way to the final lap as the lead never switched hands throughout the rest of the event. We see Garrett Maines coming through the final corner to win the Friday night NIS Open from Watkins Glen International as he led the race from wire to wire. Congratulations to Garrett Maines for putting on a dominating performance. The second race of our doubleheader highlight show at Watkins Glen International saw an SOF of 2,568 as Garrett Maines led all 45 laps of the race. Our podium finishers were Garrett Maines in first, Sean Conklin in second, and Andrew Dyson in third. The rest of the top 12, Trent Dinkle in fourth, Neil Pearson in fifth, Richard Garcia in sixth, 7th place was Rodrigo Narvaez, 8th Lawrence Shaughnessy, 9th place was Matthew Martell, 10th JR Borborema, 11th place was Tyler Marble, and 12th place was Vincent Crowe, who I must say had a really terrible Quinn Houth tribute paint scheme. Next up, we're going to look at our NIS point standings after race number 25 of the NIS Open season. It seems to be a 4-horse race as the rest of the pack has fallen off of our top 4 contenders of Garrett Maines, Chris Wilhite, Nicholas Roman, and Joseph Joseph. Next week, we will be at the wild card race of Daytona International Speedway, followed by Darlington and Kansas.
Hello and welcome to GridVision. We are excited to be here this lovely Friday night as we have some NIS competition, eNASCAR iRacing Series competition at Daytona International Speedway. Big Bad Daytona, 2.5 miles of utter high-octane speed. As my name, of course, is Brian Britt. I have Austin Edstrom as my co-commentator, the unsung hero of the GridVision family here, Austin Derbyshire down behind the cameras. Of course, I do believe we are going to be going through the weekly schedule before we get too far into the details about tonight's race. And, of course, I do believe this Sunday, I think, is the last race we have actually of the week. But we do have next week as well, kind of all lined up as well. I believe Sunday we will be at the Milwaukee Mile, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the Global Racing Truck Series. This Tuesday, this is going to be a first one. We do not have Champion Power Equipment Truck Series in action, so they are going to be actually on there. I do believe 3-race super late model season, and We will be covering them when they start their season in about a month, I do believe. Of course, Wednesday, Thunderclap is going to be at IRP, Lucas Oil Raceway, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, Friday, we're going to be making the whole trip back around another week's time. Of course, NIS at the Track Too Tough to Tame, my home track, Darlington. And, of course, we also will be, I do believe, on Sunday, so nothing really going on in global competition that Sunday for Labor Day, I do believe. But definitely going to be exciting to say the least. Of course, we definitely appreciate everybody tuning in here tonight on GridVision. Austin, tell us a little bit about Daytona here. What are you thinking?
They're going to go fast and turn left sometimes. That's about all you need to know. They're going to be in a huge 35-car pack here the entire race. You know, it'll split up a little bit. We might have some green flag pit stops to kind of shake things up, and it'll start getting strung out a little bit. And at that point, we're really just paying attention to which single file line is faster than the other one, and kind of hoping that the second is faster than the first so that we can get the pack back together. But maybe we won't even get the green flag pit stops. But it just seems that every time we come to Daytona, we have one of these longer races, we do end up getting 1 or 2 stints of green flag pit stops.
Could very well be the case. Of course, the track temp right now, I do believe 72 degrees. So pretty cool temp right now. We'll have to see how long that stays. Do we maybe get, I think it is a little bit later at night here at Daytona. So we'll have to wait and see kind of how all that plays out. Of course, you talk about pit stops. 80 laps is the fuel window, or should I say the amount of laps these guys have tonight in the race. Fuel window, I think, is projected to be about 40. So some drivers, depending on if you're in the draft or not, may only have to stop once. But what do you think the chances are of us having a green race? I think we're going to see probably a caution at some point.
Oh, I think the odds of a completely green race are just about 0. I do think we could see some green flag pit stops, but green flag to checkered, I wouldn't bet on it. That's for sure. We've got a lot of fast drivers in here. A lot of egos that are going to be like, I deserve to be up front, and really just push their way up there. So I really think that we're going to see some, kind of hard racing that leads to some accidents. I feel like that's a safe bet. So I definitely wouldn't be too surprised if we see accident after accident, especially in the early running. I feel like for some reason towards the beginning parts of these super speedway races, we really get some people pushing a little bit harder than they should early. So I think we might see something similar to that.
Yeah, right now, of course, just taking a look at some of the more details of the race. 3 sets of tires going to be down in the pits, and you talk about the egos. 5,300, I do believe, is the strength of field here. So very much a very high strength of field. A lot of very talented drivers, as well as one that I think we're kind of both geeking out about, Shane Van Gisbergen. That's going to be a really cool one to have, be able to call a race with a real driver out there that has won, recently at Chicago Street Course not long ago. But it does look like actually we have the, I do believe, the starting grid lineup here. And of course, that will be Jacob Snyder going to be starting up on the pole. Of course, Brandon Bikey starts in 2nd place. Dalton Collins is going to be in 3rd. 4th, Travis Kinborg. 5th place, Joshua Watson. 6th place, Sean Conklin. We saw how fast he was last week at Watkins Glen. 7th place, Heath Snyder. 8th, Joseph. 9th, Christopher Matthew Hill. And rounding out the top 10, Matthew Hollenbach.
11th is going to be Boyd Hogan. 12th, Jonathan Oshelin. 13th place is going to be Alan Pajari. 14th, Joshua Gathright. 15th, Patrick Moose. Our entire top 15 is within a tenth of a second of each other in qualifying. 16th, Shane Davis. 17th, Miller Bonds. 18th is Brian Young. 19th, Daniel Thomas. 20th, Jose Acosta.
21st, Jacob Klein. 22nd, Justin Levine. 23rd, Nicholas Broman. 24th, Mason Tessier. 25th, Daniel Nanny. 26th, Chris Pfeffer. 27th, Brad Newman. 28th, Lataro Lamperti. 29th, Shane Van Gisbergen. I'm kind of excited about that one. 30th, John Wittendorf. And to go ahead and round down, or if you want to take it, Austin, take those last 6 drivers.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'm a little upset that you didn't say the butcher for Laturo there, but I'll take the rest. 31st, Tommy Gossett. 32nd, Yuma Yao. 33rd, Maggie McGuire. 34th, Nathan Lyons. 35th is Benjamin Forrester. And 36th, Connor Trifari.
Yeah, definitely excited about this one here as we get prepared to get off of pit lane. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. I mean, I think if I'm a betting man, I think this is all going to be about survival. I just think that a lot of drivers have been talking about this week's competition. I don't know if you've experienced A-Opens or NISs, but I've heard a lot of drivers talk about how somewhat cutthroat and how deadly it kind of can be.
Yeah, I haven't ran a race yet this week, but I have run some practice laps in an open session, and let's just say the runs are massive. I don't really know how else to put it. The runs are absolutely huge that you can get whenever you get a couple cars lined up together, 2 or 3. And the drag on these cars is so unbelievably huge that the side draft is going to come into play so heavily. I mean, you're going to be seeing, I believe, a lot of accidents where people are just trying a little bit too hard to get up to that car's quarter panel on the outside, to get down to the quarter panel on the inside. And they're just going to misjudge it a little bit and get into some other people. So I really would not be surprised if we have multiple accidents with people just trying to side draft way too heavily.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And side drafting does actually work as well. I mean, if you get down there on somebody's quarter panel, it will slow that line down. So it is a valid thing to do, but I just don't think you want to do it really early. I think that 10 to go, that's when we're going to start to see the give and take, kind of go away. But I think we might even see it here early. It just really depends on how aggressive these drivers are. And I don't know. I mean, we're seeing some new faces out here as well. Like a Boyd Hogan, Dalton Collins. We haven't seen them in NIS competition on Friday. And I'm glad to see that these guys are showing up. We're seeing new competition show up. And I already know for a fact Boyd is very quick. So I suspect that 2 machine is going to be wanting to drive his way to the front.
Yeah, no kidding. And I'm really just excited to see the entire grid. I mean, this is such a high SOF. I mean, 5,300 here for the Friday night NIS Open. And, it's what you expect for a race at Daytona or Talladega, right? You expect to see the heavy hitters come out for the super speedways, get a really high SOF just about every time we come out to here, and we get a really, really good show every time we visit one of these racetracks.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a good show for sure as we get ready to exit turn number 4. Pace cars getting ready to take that left turn. And unlike Talladega, we don't have a long time after the pace car has gone down pit road. Talladega, you got to wait almost 30 seconds before that green flag comes out. But we're getting ready to enter the Geico restart zone now as Jacob Snyder up through the gears. Green flag is out for the first time here at Daytona. And side by side as we go on the front stretch, getting prepared to go into turn 1. Top line getting a pretty good run so far. I think they might have the advantage into 1.
Yeah, Brandon Bike got a really good restart there off the initial jump. Really good push there from Travis Kranberg. Joshua Watson right behind him, Sean Conklin right behind him, and Joseph right behind him. I mean, that outside line was lined up really well going into turn number 1, but the inside line has just got a little bit of a better of a push. Dalton Collins gets into the back of Jacob Schneider just a little bit too hard on the right rear, causes Schneider to get just a little bit sideways, and they're going to drop to about the 3rd position.
And I'm wondering here as well with the different manufacturers. A lot of times I've heard myths and rumor that the different manufacturers kind of don't bump the same. It's almost like marble on marble contact for some of the cars that have a little bit more of a rounded front nose. And of course, pushing through the corners, I've seen that has not worked out very well watching some of the competition. But it looks like the top line and the bottom line fairly equal at the moment. Of course, as we see Snyder still controlling the bottom.
Yeah, it's just really difficult for these guys to be able to line up perfect in these next-gen cars. Like I mentioned with the drag earlier, the car up front has all the hair hitting its nose, and whenever the car behind them just gets a big enough run and maybe is just off-centered on the push just a little bit, it can really send that car in the front just a little squirrely as we see a move down to the into the middle. Travis Kranberg to the inside of Brandon Bikey. Shuffles Brandon Bikey out to the outside line, and we're seeing 3-wide racing really early in this event. Only 2 cars on the outside. I believe that's Jonathan Oshlin that's going to give Brandon a hand, but they are both going to go backwards towards the beginning of this run.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you don't have many friends, it seems like you get left hanging out to dry. Not to say that Bikey doesn't have any friends, but you can just clearly see that when you get shuffled out, it's almost a death sentence. That you pretty much are just at the mercy of the guy that's behind you. So watch out for team racing in a lot of ways. And you got to hope that a lot of these drivers are trying to find their dancing partner, as we see still 3 wide there in the mid pack.
Yeah, they're 3 wide from about the 5th position on back. Just a couple little breaks that make it 2 wide, but we've actually got the outside line pushing forward. That's Joshua Watson on the outside, getting pushed by Kranberg to the lead, able to clear Dalton Collins and Jacob Schneider on the inside, but they're now 3 wide as Boyd Hogan comes towards the middle of the racetrack, and he's actually going to split them both 3 wide for the race lead.
What a move from Boyd Hogan. I thought about he's going to want to go to the front, and he definitely did. Went right there with the help of Christopher Hill. What a run as they move up to the top side and are now running along the wall. I mean, that took a lot of trust with those other drivers there. I mean, that was like the parting of the Red Sea with Moses there.
We're going to see similar racing throughout this entire event. They had a huge run from about the 7th position. They're coming through turns 3 and 4. Boyd Hogan puts it to the middle of the racetrack and gets a huge push from Christopher Hill. Former teammates there pushing each other to the lead as Joshua Watson now looks back to the bottom. Just about has no help, but it actually looks like a teammate's going to come down. Boyd Hogan throws a huge block going into turn number 3, and Joshua Watson gets put on the apron, comes back on the racetrack. They're all okay, but we're going to see huge blocks like that all night.
And look at that. You see that? That's not a good thing for Boyd. Boyd throwing that block separated him from his former teammate, Christopher Hill. And that is really, they were able to draft up to him a lot faster. But luckily, Christopher Hill cut, I think, Boyd quite a bit of a break as he shoves him to get him back up to speed.
Yeah, they're shoving really hard. We see Justin Levine, he came from the 22nd position. He's now up to 5th. He's 3rd on that outside line, giving Christopher Hill a huge shove. That outside line starting to fall back just a little bit, but coming off the corner, they're actually going to have the run going down the backstretch. Christopher Hill all over the back bumper of Boyd Hogan going down the back.
What a race this has turned out to be thus far. This has been nothing but pure adrenaline excitement. We hope everybody's enjoying it so far, because I know I sure am, as the bottom line is starting to lose a little bit of their momentum, a little bit of their steam as the top line starts to get going again. I love the recovery from Brandon Bike. You got to give some credit to that 30 machine, as he has gotten back up into, I do believe, the top 10, up to 7th right now.
Yeah, Brandon Bike, he had fallen all the way back, but here we look at Justin Levine go to the inside. He's going to take that run from the Ryko cars on the bottom. Boyd Hogan throws yet another block to the bottom of the racetrack, gets a huge shove from Justin Levine, and they're going to actually keep the lead. But now the 41 of Nathan Lyons gets to the back of Christopher Hill on the top side, and they're going to challenge back on the outside.
What a race. I mean, Boyd is just making all kinds of moves. He's not wanting to let any line really get any sort of dominant position going here, as Levine just decides he's going to push Boyd Hogan. I was talking to Levine a little bit. Oh, there's a problem.
Center gets turned to the inside of the racetrack by a Ryko car. I can't tell. That's a yellow Ryko car. They go back into the racetrack, into the racing groove, down into turn number 3. Major accident into turn 3 of Daytona.
And I'm surprised the caution took so long to come out there. It looked like they were going to stay green for a moment there, as it looks like we're seeing the 36 who had some major issues. But yeah, Heath Snyder was shot all the way down there to the grass, as this was a big accident on lap number 7. So we're going to take a look back at the replay here, see exactly what happened. We kind of look at Heath Snyder. I think he's the one that might have gotten a bad bump here that sent him careening out of control.
It wasn't a bad bump. Dalton Collins came to the inside, looked to the middle of Heath Snyder there. I thought it was the yellow Ryko car, but he was actually just an innocent bystander. That was Nicholas Broman. Dalton Collins just got to the inside of Heath Snyder, tried to come up in side draft, but it was just too close in the middle of the racetrack going down into turn number 3. Heath held a pretty good line there on the outside. Wasn't erratic or anything, but Dalton Collins just got hard into his left rear quarter panel and triggered that huge accident down the backstretch.
And looking at the SVG cam, Shane Van Gisbergen is looking good. He's looking okay, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody can be, have a little bit of a sigh of relief there, but that was quite an accident there. And you can just tell it was waiting to happen. A lot of times tracks like this, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I don't think we've seen the last of that caution flag. A lot of times when you see a caution at a track like this, it makes more come out, as this is a big move to the inside of Dalton Collins through the middle, and there was just not enough room for him to make that move.
I mean, in all seriousness, there was plenty of room. He just didn't use it all. Like, there was plenty of room to his left that he could have, gotten down there. But like I mentioned, the side drafts earlier, that's kind of the important thing. You're going to go for those side drafts, and if you misjudge it by just a couple inches, you're going to turn the guy on your outside or turn the guy on your inside, and that's just what we saw there. Heath Snyder held a really good line there. Didn't do anything wrong, but just was an innocent bystander, as we see all the leaders come down pit road, topping off that fuel, making sure that it is a one-stop race.
Yeah, this will 100% guarantee that this is a one-stop race. Do we see anyone possibly decide to stay out to maybe gamble on track position? Because with the caution flag itself, that is going to allow them to save just enough, maybe enough fuel. But look at that, Justin Levine winning the race off of pit road. What a job there for him. Here, and he actually spent 5.5 seconds in his box. So Justin Levine taking maybe a little bit less gas, possibly.
We could have seen maybe some drivers take 2 tires. I'm not 100% certain on that, but that is pretty big for Levine coming out of pit road first, because we saw how big of blocks Boyd Hogan was throwing. I mean, my goodness, he was so aggressive here in the first 10 laps of this event, and it was just, block after block that he was throwing down on that bottom lane. We saw him get turned just about sideways the first time he did it, and then he took another big bump from Levine whenever he cut across his nose. So it was just really tough there. I would want to be in front of Boyd too if I knew that he was going to throw big blocks like that. So for Justin, getting out in front of Boyd maybe eliminates a little bit of that danger, but we know how fast Boyd was whenever he came from 7th with Christopher Hill on his back bumper, and I believe it's going to be Christopher Hill on his bumper again on this restart. So that outside line could get a really good jump.
No, it will be. I mean, the 7 is going to be lining right up behind the 2 of Boyd Hogan. And Justin, I don't really blame these guys for not taking tires. I mean, tires are not going to be that important at this racetrack here. Maybe if we have to have a green flag stop, it might be more important then. But under these yellow flag conditions, I don't think it's really that important. But Justin Levine definitely going to be probably wanting to see if he can maybe work out some sort of alliance with Joshua Watson, because I think it's going to be important to have friends here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at this point, especially if you're on the bottom of the racetrack, there's probably not much Joshua Watson can do other than push Justin Levine. I mean, the way I'm seeing Boyd Hogan and Christopher Hill race, I don't think they're going to really leave much room in the middle for Joshua Watson to try to make it 3 wide. So I think Justin's safe from behind. It's just about that outside line and making sure that they do not get clear, going down into turn number 1, coming off of turn 2 down the backstretch on the first lap. He really needs to try to control this race.
This is an interesting development. We were talking about Christopher Hill behind Boyd Hogan. That is not the case. Hill has elected to come down pit road for another stop of fuel. So that is going to leave Boyd Hogan with Daniel Nanny behind him. That changes everything.
Yeah, I thought for sure Boyd Hogan would get an amazing jump with Christopher Hill on his backside. But Daniel Nanny is no slouch either, right? I mean, we've seen him towards the front of a lot of these NIS races. We saw him in P2 whenever he got wrecked by our leader, Justin Levine, at Michigan a couple weeks ago. So I know Daniel Nanny's going to give the back bumper of Boyd Hogan all that he can here on this restart. So, it doesn't have the same ring to it as we saw earlier with the whenever they came from 7th to 1st, but I think Daniel Nanny is still good enough to give Justin Levine a run for his money here with Boyd Hogan on the outside.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some other drivers in the field that I would definitely keep an eye on as well. I mean, you got Nathan Lyons. I believe is he a current Coke Series driver, or I know he previously was. So I mean, there's a lot of talent out here in this field right now. I mean, I love everything we're seeing right now. I think that we are in for quite the show, that this is going to be the battle of egos, and I'm just glad that we're up here and we're not down there.
Yeah, no kidding. I would be so mad behind the wheel in this race. I already know it. I mean, just with the way that the runs work in these next-gen machines on iRacing, that is, it's just absolutely mayhem, the kind of racing we get. I wish that we could see this in real life, but, we just get the random 2x2 trains in real life, it seems. But on iRacing, the next-gen car is crazy fun to drive, but it's also crazy irritating whenever you've got other people, just kind of making some boneheaded moves throughout the race.
Oh, you can when you got such a fast race car. So, I mean, it's you get those huge runs. But here comes the pace car down pit road as we get prepared for the green flag to come out for the second time. As there it is, green flag back out in the air. Justin Levine makes his call early. He jumps up to the top in front of Boyd Hogan. Maybe we have an alliance developing here between Levine and Hogan.
Well, I don't know. You say that. I could definitely see Boyd Hogan pulling to the bottom as soon as he gets himself and Daniel Nanny clear, but the outside line is lined up really good. That's Levine, Hogan, Nanny, and Kramerberg right lined up 1, 2, 3, 4 on the outside. Looks like all 4 of them are going to clear the bottom lane exiting turn number 2, and that's going to leave Boyd Hogan the opportunity. Is he just going to stay behind Justin Levine and push him the entire time, or will he dump to the inside, try to pass Levine? We saw just how aggressive he was on the first run. Here on the second, though, it does look like he's committed to the back bumper of Justin Levine, and that outside line is actually training up 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 cars involved in the outside line lined up nose to tail.
Yeah, we're seeing the bottom line has pretty much utterly disintegrated. They are actually falling back, I do believe, even further back. Joshua Watson, I think, is leading that bottom line, as you see 3 wide. So I think that front group there, they realize that we need to stay in line, and we can kind of maybe even separate from these guys if they continue to race each other very hard. Of course, we talked about the side draft being something that really could impact these guys. But look at this. We also see a 2-car tandem starting to develop there that's actually working out.
Yeah. Oh, there's a little bit of contact more towards the back. I saw it again coming out of the tri-oval, and again coming out of turn number 4. Somebody gets put into the outside wall. A couple cars go scattering. I couldn't quite tell who that was back there. We see the 11. I can't quite tell who that is on the bottom. He looks to be A-OK. But, coming through earlier, I don't know, just multiple contact. The 11 is actually Shane Van Gisbergen, so luckily he gets through. I would love to keep saying that name throughout the course of the night, but it does look like the back pack might just lose the draft of the main pack here as the main pack single files out on the outside line.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of drivers jump out as well. I see Alan Bajari trying to jump out. So a lot of drivers still trying to get that bottom line to work again, but it looks like I think maybe Ryko trying to form on the bottom here. Maybe, I don't know, you see, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, Heath Snyder. We saw Snyder involved in that crash earlier. He's back in it as well, trying to get that bottom line working working with some of the Ryko cars. So interesting to see kind of some cooperation between teams here. And I think you just cannot be picky when you're coming to a track like Daytona as we look through I do believe the eyes, if I'm not mistaken, of Joshua Watson.
Wow, that bottom lane is coming. Alan Pajari's getting a huge push from Joshua Watson coming out of turn number 4. They've gone all the way from about 10th place up to side-by-side for 3rd, just going through the tri-oval. Alan Pajari, oh man, he just gets a little sideways off the nose of Joshua Watson. All good, no harm, no foul. Justin Levine throws a huge block down to the bottom of the racetrack, covers off Alan Pajari, but Boyd Hogan's going to get to his outside.
It's definitely crazy to see how quickly a run forms like that. I mean, those guys, the bottom line was nothing. There was nothing to them as Levine really loose right there in front of Boyd Hogan. He told us before the race began that he was going to be blocking both lanes like that, and he is making good on his word, right?
Oh my goodness, if I was the rest of the field, I would be so afraid of the GridVision car and the Champion Allegiant car. Boyd Hogan and Justin Levine are putting on a show up towards the front of this field as now Boyd Hogan pulls out to the lead with a big push from Daniel Nanny and Kramerg in 3rd place on the outside. Big push from the outside line to get both of those first 2 drivers clear.
Yeah, Nanny's doing a really good job of pushing right here, and it's not a surprise. That 4 machine's definitely been fast, but here comes Hogan down to the bottom in front of Levine. Nanny's going to try to see if he can side drive. Levine connects with the back end of the 2 of Boyd Hogan. They are packed in here like sardines right now. As you can see, from 1st back to 18th is a 2nd. These guys are all packed in here.
Yeah, while these guys are racing side by side, that is going to give that 2nd pack of cars down, lined up single file on the bottom of the racetrack, the opportunity to just draft back up to these lead cars in the lead pack. I mentioned earlier the drafting, the side drafting material between these cars, you know, just how much drag is on each of these next-gen vehicles. Whenever they're side by side, 2 by 2, and there's a different group of cars, even if it's a lesser amount of single file cars, they can just draft straight up to the lead pack. So we see Boyd Hogan switching lanes back and forth to the top, to the bottom, twice in the front stretch, just throwing major blocks any chance that he gets.
No, he is but the Pied Piper right now. I mean, he's looking like a Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Joey Logano. The way those guys kind of drive at super speedways, going in between the lanes, you know, really just controlling the flow, almost like he's the conductor of the race, right?
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, they have been from the bottom to the top, to the bottom to the top, just over and over again. Both of these drivers, looks like neither one of them is going to throw a block on Alan Pajari here. They're going to try to come down, try to side draft just a little bit. Alan Pajari gets sideways. He gets turned by Joshua Watson into the outside wall. Justin Levine, Boyd Hogan, both go spinning. Both of our leaders get taken out in just one fell swoop. Multiple cars involved in our 2nd accident of the evening.
And I think a lot of it might have been because they were coming up on a lap car, and I think that caused them to kind of condense a little bit to maybe try to avoid the lap car. And you see, I believe Heath Snyder involved for the 2nd time tonight as well. As green flag is still out, ladies and gentlemen. That did not bring out a caution. Green flag is still out on the racetrack.
That's going to completely kill Justin Levine's race. He got put hard in the outside wall. His car is completely killed. I'd be so surprised if he doesn't have a meatball. Boyd Hogan doesn't look quite as bad, but he's just so far off the pack. If we don't get a caution at some point, he's absolutely going to lead a lap. But our main pack has been shattered because of that main accident there on the front stretch. There's only 3 cars in the main pack by themselves, single file. We have to go all the way back to Miller Bonds in 4th place until we can get our big major pack.
Yeah, I mean, we see, of course, the top, I do believe top 3 are pretty much up here in the lead. And I think they're going to get caught very quickly because their lap times are going to be a lot slower because they don't have as many cars. But then again, 3 is the lucky number. But it does seem like Jonathan Ashlam doesn't seem like he's got as much speed here. So we're going to take a look back at this accident. And you see 3 wide there in the mid-pack. But I think that they just got really, I think it was a bad bump. And you see Boyd Hogan goes sideways, gets hit by Heath Snyder. 29 sliding through the grass, Joshua Watson sliding through the grass, just everybody kind of going for a ride here.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I hate to say it, but I got to put most of the blame there on Joshua Watson. He got Alan Pajari just a little sideways coming out of the corner. We see here just a little bit too offset to the left. And whenever you're offset to the left like that, whenever the banking changes to the flat, you know, it's just going to turn the guy in front of you. You got him just a little bit loose, and because of that loose condition from Alan Pajari, it put Joshua Watson to his outside, and he just came down and cleared out Pajari. Unfortunately, sent him into Levine and Boyd Hogan, just nowhere where those 2 drivers could go, and just absolutely set off this major chain reaction.
And you see right here that lap car that was on the bottom that had literally went onto the apron to get out of the way. He got killed, essentially, was trying to mind his own business, and this pack of cars just came up on him and all wrecked as soon as they got up to him. And that's just bad luck. As we go back to, of course, the live feed, Daniel Nanny, Travis Krimberg, all up in front right now, of course, with Jonathan Ashalam. Let's see, do you think, looking at lap times right now, this top 3 are not really slower than the rest of the group?
Yeah, that backpack is just not catching as much as I would have figured. Now, they are I mean, they're looking like they're trying to get side by side, but I really just don't think that it's really going to happen like that, in all seriousness. And we mentioned earlier the 11 was Shane Van Gisbergen. I got to say, actually, the 16 is Shane Van Gisbergen. The 11 is Brad Newman. They're just in the exact same paint scheme. We see them lined up nose to tail here together. But yeah, that second pack is just not really closing the gap. They've closed about half a tenth, maybe to a tenth now. But they really need to make sure they don't get side by side, even though a couple of them are trying to do it. I don't think that that's a smart call. I think maybe the rest of this group just needs to kind of pull up to the top and keep it a single file train around the top side just to keep that speed up. Because they were catching, they've caught 3/10 now actually down this lap, so they're doing something right. They are catching that field just a little bit, the top three, but they really have to get it figured out, make sure that they don't do anything too crazy. If they get side by side and start side drafting really, really heavily, then they're just going to lose time.
No, 100%. I mean, definitely glad to see those guys starting to catch. I think they're also going to start to catch the draft of a lap car. I think that is Heath Snyder as well, as Miller Bonds leads this second group. I think eventually 2.4 seconds now separate them as they go to the high side to avoid Heath Snyder. Of course, Heath Snyder heavily damaged. He had a big impact in that last accident. I know a lot of drivers out here have got to be probably hoping and praying that maybe a caution comes out, but we see now Christopher Hill jumps up to the top. This is what we were hoping that wouldn't happen. They're starting to race each other again here.
Yeah, and you see as soon as that outside line has caught the front of the inside line, they've just lost a tenth and a half through the front stretch. So we just know that going side by side is slower than going single file, even whenever you have such a major pack. But that outside line is moving so good that they might just be able to clear the inside line and get them all single filed out to the top.
Yeah, definitely could happen. Of course, the I do believe top three have added a person to their ranks, but now we are starting to see it trending to where Christopher Hill, now leading that line, is starting to catch up to the top three. No problem for Miller Bonds as he's up into the outside wall. No caution, though, as he does save it. As it looks like Miller Bonds shunted out of the group there as we take a look back at the replay. You see right here, I do believe he got someone tried to jump to his inside, and Bonds, I think, tried to make a late block. And unfortunately hit the outside wall. Could have definitely hurt his suspension on that race car, as he is all by his lonesome. But of course, the second pack is starting to catch this top three right now. 2.4 seconds separates them once again. I think now is a great time, while we have a moment, to go ahead and take a quick step away, pay some attention to our sponsors. We'll be right back with some more exciting racing here at Daytona International Speedway on GridVision.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to GridVision's presentation of the NIS here at Daytona International Speedway. My name is Brian Britt. I have Austin Edstrom here in the booth as my co-commentator. Of course, Austin Derbyshire down behind the cameras. If you're just joining us, we have had quite a bit of race-changing action here that has caused a lot of, I'd say, chaos. But right now, I do believe we might see a lead change here in just a moment as Christopher Hill and the gang have caught up to the top three, Austin.
Yeah, that second pack split up whenever we saw that wreck just before the commercial break. It caused a lot of it to fall off, but the front 5 cars of that second pack were able to stay clear and stay fast, and they have caught the main pack in just about no time at all. And Christopher Hill and Joseph Squared have gone to the outside with help from Pfeffer there. I believe that, yeah, Chris Pfeffer on the outside there with them, 3-car train on the outside trying to make it work, but they are outnumbered on the bottom. But that outside does have a pretty good run here going down into turn number 1 as, oh man, Shane Van Gisbergen goes down onto the bottom of the racetrack there on the apron, and Daniel Nanny throws a huge block going into turn number 1 on Christopher Hill.
And Van Gisbergen had just a little bit of, I do believe, a blinking issue there. So not a surprise. A lot of times we see that with our Australian brothers, as we see Nanny, like you said, making that block on Christopher Hill. But Hill has been fast all race long. We're starting to see a big move, though. I do believe Van Gisbergen has decided to go down to the bottom. He is with Brad Newman here. They're going to see if they possibly can't get by Travis Krimborg. I wonder if that's going to be able to work. It looks like they're going to know. I'll get single filed again. I wouldn't really be making a lot of moves that are a little bit risky because you do not want to lose a draft here at Daytona. And I think that's a distinct possibility when the front pack is so small like this.
Yeah, with the front pack being so small, though, you know, they really just need to stay single file as much as it hates me to say it. You know, as a broadcaster, I want to see them get side by side, race for the lead. I want to see some of that craziness. But as long as they stay single file, that second pack is just going to have a really hard time catching them. The second pack is only 5 cars deep, maybe not counting lap cars. You know, we see looking back at it right now, it's definitely more than 5 cars, but you know, just about 6 or 7, and maybe a lap car involved in it as well. So, you know, that whole second pack is just a little splintered off from the rest of them, and it's going to be very difficult for all of them to, you know, make up the ground that they need.
We talk about someone maybe possibly losing the draft. I think Oshalem might lose it here in a moment. He is very close. And one thing about these next-gen machines that I've noticed is that unlike the trucks in the Xfinity, it's much easier in these next gens to lose the draft. A lot easier than those trucks in Xfinity. They have, the trucks, from what I've noticed, have such a better closing rate, or should I say suck up. And these next gens, it seems like if you get about a second back, you're off the draft. You've lost it.
Yeah, I feel like in the next gen, if you can get right on somebody's bumper, you can push and make it work better than you can in the trucks. But you're absolutely right. In the trucks, you can be a little bit further back and still hold on to the draft. In the next gens, if you break out of that half a second bubble and everybody in front of you is lined up and you've got no help, you're just going to keep going backwards and completely lose the draft. So you're absolutely right. As soon as you get just a little bit too much air on your nose, you just really start to drop really far throughout the field. And I'd like to point out that second pack is roughly 5.2 seconds back. That's been fluctuating around that point for most of this, ever since the main pack has kind of merged into one and, made the first and second one pack. Now our new second pack is just roughly 5.2 back, and it's been steadily 5.2 to 5.5 for the last couple of laps.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, I do believe Tommy Gossett right now is leading that pack. And I think that's Dalton Collins, if I'm not mistaken. He is that lap car that you spoke of. And I think he was involved actually in the first crash of the night. So I'm sure he's hoping to possibly get a caution. And I think he would maybe be the lucky dog. And I think he would be actually, no, Miller Bonds would be the lucky dog. Dalton Collins is the second car that's one lap down right now.
Yeah, that's because Miller Bonds just went a lap down this last lap to the leaders, but, he's going to have this huge train coming up to him entering turn number 1, and Dalton Collins is a part of that train. So he's going to lose that lucky dog position in just a couple seconds to Dalton Collins. But Miller Bonds, he's seeing the guy that wrecked him going down the inside. I think it was probably more on Bonds, but maybe you expect a little bit, nicer treatment from your Ryko teammate. It was 2 Ryko cars that got together, and Bonds is going to try to hold on to the back of this second pack, but I really just don't think he's going to be able to do it.
Yeah, one thing about when you want to try to stay in the draft, when you're that lap car that's a single car, you want to really stay on the bottom line and force those guys to go around you, so you're kind of almost absorbed into the group, and that just did not happen there. So unfortunately, Miller Bonds is going to continue to fall down, and he might even possibly go another lap down unless another pack picks him up.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're looking at Justin Levine finally coming out of the pits here. He's 15 laps down after he was involved in that earlier incident that did not bring out a caution. But I do want to point out, one of the most difficult parts of this race, green flag pit stops. They're coming up here pretty soon in about 10 laps if we can get there. I'm kind of thinking we're going to get there because we just got a bunch of single file racing at this point with different packs trying to catch each other. I mean, we've got, what, 4 different packs scattered throughout the field. Obviously, our main pack, one that's 5.5 to 6 seconds back, another one that's 12 seconds back, and another one that's 21 seconds back. So we're just really splintered throughout the field right here. I really hope that we can get a caution to bunch everybody back up.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody's kind of hoping for. But then again, I mean, some of my favorite racing is strategy racing. When it comes down to more numbers. Like if you were in Tommy Gossett's shoes right now, who is in ninth, leading that second pack, what could he do to possibly, get those guys back into contention? Is there anything they could do on pit road to maybe get into contention here?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything on pit road that could really make up 5 seconds, 6 seconds, right? Because everybody's going to be putting the tank full of fuel to make sure that they can get to the end of this race, and that would be 4 tires. So, just filling up the caution's out, so it doesn't matter. I don't know who it is or what happened, but caution is out. Oh, it's in the lane. It's in the main pack. It's in the main pack. The main pack is splintered. Boyd Hogan is involved. He was getting lapped, I believe. I don't know if it was his fault or not, but the main pack has been absolutely destroyed. Shane Van Gisbergen has major damage to the front end of his race car. As we're going to look at a replay here.
Right there. I think let's see exactly what happened. As like you said, I think Boyd Hogan was drafting with Shane Davis, Joshua Watson, and some other drivers. I think they might have had contact that was separate. Oh wow, look at that. Good miss there from, I do believe, Osheram there. To take yet another look back at this.
This is Nathan Lyons pushing Boyd Hogan down into turn number 3, offset to the right just a little bit going into the corner, no harm, no foul yet. Oh, he just gets a little too much offset, and he just absolutely destroys Boyd Hogan. Absolutely nothing Boyd Hogan could do there. I mean, he's just riding the race, his own race. He's just riding there, not doing anything wrong, and he just gets absolutely destroyed by Nathan Lyons there in the 41.
Yeah, that car is done. I mean, there's no way that you're going to drive that car again tonight. I think that hit was so hard. I mean, if he was actually in that car, I would definitely be wanting to go to the infield care center and check on him, because that was a sizable hit on the outside wall. You see it completely took off the front hood there of that race car, and you can see Boyd disconnecting. You can't really blame him for being upset in that. And I think that, I'm sure Nathan Lyon was already upset as well, considering he had already had his race somewhat ruined. So I just think that all these guys were kind of losing focus and just thought their race was over. And, and it led to some mistakes that unfortunately as well impacted lead lap cars. I mean, Shane Van Gisbergen, we saw some other drivers having to make evasive maneuvers to avoid that crash that had nothing to do with the lead pack, but they became involved with it.
Yeah, I hate to see the lead pack there get completely screwed by a couple lap cars. And, we've talked about the talent that was in that pack of lap cars, right? Nathan Lyons, previous Coke driver. Boyd Hogan has been fast on this service for years and years. So, that's just not a mistake that you would really expect from Nathan Lyons in all seriousness. But he did own up to it in the chat. And, I think rightfully so. I think he's the only one that you could really put any blame on there. But, still heartbreaking. And it just takes a little misstep from somebody to actually cause something like that to happen. So, it stinks, but at the end of the day, that's super speedway racing.
You know what? It's not enough. His apology is not enough because he took out Shane Van Gisbergen, and I am very upset. So I'm writing a letter, Austin. I am writing a letter. I'm drafting it right now. We're stopping the broadcast right now. I'm just going to start writing this letter.
Well, as long as Shane doesn't have any engine damage, he should be able to get it all fixed up.
You saw the hood was rattling around. That's not a good sign.
No, you're definitely not right, but for some reason with iRacing's damage model, as long as you fix all the damage, you're fine. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him back up towards the front of the pack as long as he doesn't have engine damage. It was a big hit to the front of his car, so engine damage is definitely on the cards. But, I'm hopeful that he'll be okay. I'm looking at him repair his damage, and his left front already looks a lot better.
We've seen crashes that are close to that before. Like you said, with the new damage model, that might not be the end. I do want to say, though, one thing about it. Christopher Hill, I've been looking at that race car. At first, I thought that was a Pepto-Bismol paint scheme. That's actually Hubba Bubba, so I do want to mention that as well. As they come down pit road, I do believe to get a little bit more gas in the tank here. Now, no one, I do believe, doesn't have enough. No one has enough fuel to actually make it to the end here.
So I agree, but will anybody push it? Will somebody come down on the last, little bit here and on the last lap, come into the green and fill up the tank, and just try to save gas the entire time. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody tries it. And if I was running towards the back of the pack, I might try it. So we could see somebody try to top off with fuel and just save a lot during this run.
Could be. I mean, I think. I mean, if you're in the draft, and you just run like 60% throttle. Could be something that saves you enough fuel. But I know for a fact, the guy that's actually out there leading is not going to be saving enough fuel. I mean, as we all know, everybody that knows about super speedway racing, that guy that is in front is in the air. He's the one that's having to cut through the air. He's going to be burning up the most gas. And from what I've heard, the fuel window is about 40 laps. Now, of course, at tracks like this, that varies quite substantially. Could someone make it a couple more laps? I think that is possible, but still, I think that it's a long way. I think that it could come down to fuel, though. I mean, it could very well be possible. I'm not going to say it's not, because every time I've ever said that, oh, these guys can't make it, I've been wrong. So I'm just going to we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no kidding. But everybody that pitted right there, that was actually coming to the one to go. So everybody that pitted, and we saw a ton of drivers on pit road right there, all the way back from Christopher Hill, who is now running in 9th place. Everybody from 9th on back went in to top up their fuel. There's going to be a couple of those drivers that will try to stretch this 100% if it does run green. And we saw, if a little accident happens where a caution doesn't come out, we get splintered up into a bunch of different single file packs, and there could be a lot of different people that could save in those packs.
Yeah, 100%. Especially if you got some guys that are not really trying to battle with you very hard. As we see, of course, pace car down, pit road, green flag is back out here. As at least we got a lot of the pack back together. Brandon Bikey jumps up in front of Brad Newman, follows in right behind Joseph, but Joseph, I do believe, not having any of it. He's going to actually follow in behind Daniel Nanny. So a lot of these guys, I don't know, Joseph jumps up top. What is going on here with him? This is going to maybe produce a 3-wide scenario.
It just looks like nobody in the top 4 was content. They all wanted to be lined up together, except for Joseph, who really was trying to get the lead, so he was just going wherever he could, but it didn't really work out for him. He falls back to about the 6th place position there on the inside, that blue Ryko machine, and he's now challenged by Nicholas Vroman on the outside, who's coming up to Sean Conklin, another Ryko driver, trying to give those two a huge shove on the outside line, trying to get that outside line working, as we see Daniel Nanny and Brandon Bikey lead the bottom line 1-2.
Yeah, Brandon Bikey, definitely very good recovery for him. Also, we see Sean Conklin up in the top 5. He had a awesome run last week at Watkins Glen. So I think that, he's got a little bit of a redemption on his mind. Because I think that if he had, not made as many mistakes last week at Watkins Glen, he could have found himself in victory lane. Could he maybe make up for that here tonight as he's in that 5th spot now, trying to make that top groove work as he has Vroman. Big run from Vroman. Brad Newman takes notice and jumps up with him.
Those Ryko drivers had a huge run down the back. They were able to find a hole behind Brad Newman and Forrester there on the bottom line. Both ducked down to get a little bit more draft and then ducked back out to the outside line using that huge run that they were able to get, as now Brandon Bikey takes it too wide on Daniel Nanny for the 4th position as the front 3 are just pulling away.
Wow, they have got such a big run. I don't think it's going to last forever, though. I think that eventually the rest of the pack is going to draft back up to them. But I don't know. I mean, I have been wrong in the past. As we also see Matt Hottenball. We haven't seen him tonight very much, as he's now up in the top 5 as well for the first time.
Daniel Nanny ducks back out to the outside for about the 7th place position. He's in front of Ryko teammate Tommy Gossett. And as I mentioned, Ryko, we got a Ryko 1-2 right here with Sean Conklin, Nicholas Vroman, just running that outside line, trying to pull that outside train around the inside line. We see Christopher Hill there, 2nd place on the inside with another Ryko driver and Joseph Squared trying to make the inside line work, but they don't quite have the run just yet. They're side by side for about 7th position, but the inside line from there on back is really, really well formed, and they are pushing as hard as they can, trying to get back up to the lead, trying to get side by side with Nicholas Vroman and Sean Conklin.
It would not surprise me, though, to see this bottom line really get moving, as we see Benjamin Forrester, I do believe, leading that bottom line, and the 27 machine. Haven't talked a whole lot about him, as he gets a little bit wiggly there down to the apron, just a hair, as he's being pushed by Christopher Hill. But like I said, the bottom line has been very strong. If you have the right driver, I think, leading it and the right driver pushing, it seems like it works out well. But it looks like Hill maybe not, I don't know if it's his fault. Maybe it's just not being able to predict the 27's line. I think that's a big part of super speedway racing, is you got to be able to predict that guy's line in front of you. And also visibility. you know, a lot of people don't realize is how little you can see from the cockpits of one of these race cars.
Yeah, you have to just trust the guy in front of you that he's going to go to the right place. But honestly, if I'm Christopher Hill, I'm a little nervous. Forster has gotten sideways a couple times off of his bumper, just not holding the pushes as good as Christopher Hill would like. You know, we saw Christopher push Boyd Hogan from about the 7th or 8th position up to the lead earlier in this race. So we know Christopher Hill has a great front bumper on that Toyota. But it's just like Forster can't hold on to it just well enough for them to make a ton of hay. But they have gone from about side by side for the 8th position to now side by side for 4th entering turn number 3.
Yeah, I do. I think Forster has a fast race car, and it seems like both of these drivers seem like they're capable enough. But I have also heard as well that maybe contact, you know, car-on-car contact might not be the best thing. I've heard a lot of drivers talk about it if you actually touch bumpers at Daytona for some reason, that it actually takes some of your speed away. So I'm not sure if that's actually the case. I mean, we are seeing not a whole lot of bump draft, and for the most part, it seems like these guys are just using the aero bubble or the air bubble to try to push these guys ahead.
Yeah, a little bit of that air bubble, you know, usage right now. Oh man, Brandon Bikey really throws it to the outside of Brad Newman there, but he ducks back in line. Sorry, let me go back to what I was saying. A little bit of them using the air bubble right now is really just because it's still, you know, there's still 37 laps in this race left. And a lot of people, like I mentioned earlier, I believe are trying to save gas to make it to the end of this race. They're just trying to stay within touch of the main pack and not do anything too crazy here throughout the middle portion of this race, making sure that they can get to the end, first of all, and hopefully get to the end on gas without having to pit again.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the key. I mean, I think guys like Sean Conklin, guys like Benjamin Forster, they're kind of being used, taken advantage of a little bit somewhat. You know, they're up front leading their lines, but they're also burning the most fuel. Conklin burning the most fuel out of everybody, considering he is taking the long way around the racetrack and also in the clean air. So, you know, when does Conklin start to realize that, hey, I'm being taken advantage of, I need to get into the draft and save fuel? Because, I mean, if you have any hope of making it to the end of this run, or to the end of the race, you're going to need to be in the draft.
Absolutely. And if he is in the lead and cannot save gas like he is right now, he's got to hope and pray everybody else can't make it either. I know it's, you know, fringe if people can make it right now. I don't know if anybody really can. It will take a lot of saving, but if you are in the middle of the pack, you can run about 50 to 75% throttle for a lot of the lap and just save a lot of gas. Only break it up to 100 whenever you really need to, just to make sure you don't lose the draft. And I do think we're seeing a couple people towards the back of the pack do that. A couple guys on the bottom can save just a little bit more fuel than the guys up top, because the guys up top are able to run it wide open and have to run it wide open to keep their speed up throughout the entire corner. So I think the bottom lane may save gas a little bit better, but I still don't know if it'll be enough to make it to the end of the race, even if you're not in the lead.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of drivers right now are probably looking at their black box, or they got their crew chiefs, whoever's on their team that is kind of you know, doing the crew chiefing for these drivers, and they're looking at that at those figures. They're doing some calculating right now, and you know, they're probably thinking that, hey, I don't know if I can make it or not, and you know, as soon as the alarm bells start to ring that, hey, we're not making it, no matter how much saving we do, let's get to strategy planning on when are we going to come down? When is that going to be? What number? How much gas do we take? Do we take tires? I mean, I know that, you know, these next gens at tracks like this, tires don't wear out a whole lot, but I know that they do mean something when you're coming off of pit road. So, you know, is it worth taking tires? Is it something that you just wouldn't even consider, Austin?
For this last pit stop, I wouldn't consider it, just for the simple fact that you only need a splash of gas if you do pit. So you'd just be wasting so much time here if you take even 2 tires. I think people will literally be in the box for 2, 3, 4 seconds maximum. As we look at the field come around the lap car of Jonathan Oshalem, he's going to try to keep the draft. It looks like that car's good enough to where he's going to be able to keep it once he goes a lap down, as he does now. And he is the first car lap down, so he's definitely looking for the draft, just to make sure that he can get back on the lead lap. But, you know, I say that, we've also got a couple cars in the main pack that are a lap down in Heath Snyder and Shane Van Gisbergen. Heath Snyder and Jonathan Oshalem make a little bit of contact coming off of turn 2, just as I was talking about the two of them. And that is the race for the lucky dog spot. If both of them wreck, then neither of them get the lucky dog.
100%. That was a very close call right there. We thought that they seemed like they were going to get by just fine, but it looks like I think maybe Oshalem kind of caught the apron, went up a little bit. I'm not quite sure exactly what took place there, but the our producer says he was just saying hi to the camera. Okay, definitely was very much doing that. As of course we see Sean Conklin still out front right now. Definitely a great job. I'll tell you what I have, I'm crying still about it. Shane Van Gisbergen not out here with his teammate Brad Newman. I don't know if they're teammates or not, but it can't be a coincidence those guys were running the same paint scheme.
Yeah, I think they're both from Australia too, right?
I'm getting ready to get my magnifying glass out and be sleuthing out here.
I imagine they know each other or something because they got the same paint scheme and they're both from Australia, New Zealand. So I imagine
they're a big place, and New Zealand's a separate country, but they are close together.
But they're right there. Unless this is an Australian supercar paint scheme that I don't know about, which could be. So maybe they're just both fans of whoever drives that.
Okay, that's the iRacing region apparently. But I'm just saying, a lot of people were like, "Hey, dude, you know, that's not the same country." Australia's a big place, I'll tell you that. And New Zealand, I know some Australian people and New Zealanders, and both of them, if you get them confused, they don't like that. They do not like that at all.
Well, we might confuse them here tonight just because we don't care. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, in iRacing, it says Australia, New Zealand, so that's kind of what I was getting at. But you know, the bottom line, they get to about third, fourth, fifth, you know, challenging for about those positions, and then they just kind of stall out, like they're not going as hard as they absolutely could. So I'm not sure. I feel like that inside line could pull up just a little bit more and really challenge the outside line a bit more, but they just haven't done it early. I'm just wondering if maybe the pusher, Christopher Hill, is saving a little bit of gas, not giving the 27 everything that he can. As we see, he is almost a car length off of his bumper going into turn number 1. And, you know, I mentioned that, but the outside line is so stacked up that Nicholas Roman is all over the back bumper of Sean Conklin going into the same corner. So that outside line is just pushing heavier, just not caring as much about the fuel mileage at this point, if I had to bet. So maybe these guys up front towards the top of the field or top of the line, Brandon Bikey, Brad Newman, Nicholas Roman, Sean Conklin, maybe they just think that nobody in the field can make it on gas.
No, I think that definitely could very well be the case. I think that Christopher Hill, I was kind of, as you were saying that, I was thinking that same thing, that Hill wasn't really pushing him. We saw what that race car was capable of when he was pushing Boyd Hogan, and it just does not seem like he's really utilizing as much as he could. I do believe they're coming up to Jose Acosta there. I do also want to mention what a recovery for the 26 of Nathan Lyons. I know he was involved in that big accident that caused the kind of the problems in the front pack earlier, that kind of took the 16 of Gisenberg out of the race. You know, I'm surprised to see he's recovered so well up to 11th right now.
Man, you sound like the NASCAR announcers at the Chicago street race saying Gisenbergen. At least you're not like Jeff Burton. Jeff Burton butchered the heck out of that man's name, unfortunately, going towards the middle of the racetrack. That was one of the funniest sound bits I've ever heard, and I've made plenty of mistakes myself. Man, the bottom line really cuts across Jose Acosta's nose there, trying to keep the bottom, probably trying to break the side drafts just so that they don't get side drafted from that top side line. But the bottom line kind of gets broken up just a little bit more spread out because of that little issue with the lap car. And a lot of the cars towards the back are just so indecisive. I see the cars in the very, very back go top, bottom, top, bottom. I just don't really know, you know, what all of them are thinking. I just don't think that, I don't know. I think they need to stay in the same line and just be committed to it and push it, or save gas from whatever they're doing. But if they keep going bottom to top, it's just a little, I don't know, not reckless, but I just feel like they're not necessarily using the most of their fuel mileage at this point with them. You know, it looks like they're racing really hard in the back. Yeah,
I mean, I've always kind of felt the same way. You know, stick with the line that you're going to run. You know, I agree. I don't think that these guys, it's almost like when you go to the grocery store and you see one line is shorter, you jump to that line, and then it takes longer in that line, and you jump to the other line. You know, it's just it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, just stick with that line, see what happens, commit, and see what happens. You know. And
I have gotten confirmation. Newman and Shane Van Gisbergen are both on Lobs eSports, so they are teammates. So they are running together, you know, trying to help each other out. Of course, Van Gisbergen unfortunately got caught up in that accident that he had absolutely zero to do with, and is a lap down at this point. So hopefully he can get that lap back and you know, be able to challenge these guys again. But he is the last car in the main pack that's a lap down. So he will have to pass 2 cars to be able to do anything, as he's stuck behind Justin Levine more towards the back.
Well, at least he's still out there and you know, running under his own power here as we're coming up to lap 54, which means I do believe we're going to have 17 laps to go here. Or should I say, I'm sorry, 27 laps to go here. But this thing is flying right on by. Of course, we've had quite a bit of drama, but it's actually been quite green. As we see, I do believe some movement in the mid-pack. Nathan Lyons moving up to 10th place. Benjamin Forrester. Those guys in the bottom line starting to move further back right now, as they were up there challenging for the top 5. Now, I do believe we're back in 8th.
Yeah, we're just not seeing the same aggression that we saw earlier in the race. And again, I think that's just because of the fuel saving that we're seeing throughout the field. And, it's just kind of hard to commentate on it because we're just not seeing a lot of movement throughout the rest of the pack. Everybody's just kind of content with riding where they're at. But as you mentioned earlier, if I'm Sean Conklin or Forrester leading either of these lines, I would be sweating bullets just thinking everybody else might be able to save all the gas that they need. And in the case of Sean Conklin, it would be kind of self-inflicted because he was further towards the back of this pack after the pit stop, and he drove himself all the way to the front. He made a great move whenever everybody was kind of too wide. Him and Roman got single file and were able to dip down to the bottom to get a big draft going down the backstretch, and then they used that to get to the lead. If I'm both of those drivers, I would be really nervous about fuel mileage at this point.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But the damage is already done, I'd say, for Sean Conklin. I think that he's just committed to what he's doing right now. He's already made a decision. He can't change it now. He's already burnt up more fuel than everybody else. And I think that also is almost a sign as well that that most of these drivers, I'm sure a lot of the Ryco guys that are, I understand the Ryco guys are not all on the same technical team, but the guys that are communicating, I guarantee, and other teams as well, are all communicating with one another, and they're saying, hey, we're not going to be able to make it, we are going to be able to make it. So I'm sure Conklin's got somebody in his ear, and I think this is a sign that Conklin, nobody can make it, I don't think, as we see more lap traffic involved there. Lap traffic seems to be the mine field that these guys, obstacle in a lot of ways that these guys are having to tackle. We're seeing a lot of close calls with lap traffic.
Yeah, we saw Forrester and Alan Pajari get into it coming out of turn number 2, actually. Forrester was just a little argy-bargy coming down the racetrack as he passed Pajari. Oh, as Forrester gets just a little bit of a bad bump going down to the inside. Christopher Hill nice enough to let him back in line. But, man, that was almost huge. Forrester could have got sent hard into the inside wall. He does a good job of holding on to it, even though he got put on the apron. It was just as the inside line looked like they were starting to make hay and starting to come up towards the front, looking like they were wanting to challenge for the lead finally after riding there for about 5th place the entire run. But as soon as they kind of, we saw it earlier whenever Forrester was trying to move up to the front of the pack. Every time Christopher Hill got to his bumper and gave him a push, he just couldn't handle it perfect. And we saw it again. As soon as they start pushing up to the front, once again, he gets just a little bit squirrely off of the nose of Christopher Hill.
Yeah, something about that race car just does not seem like it's, as, I'd say, locked to the ground as a lot of the other cars are. So, maybe it's a little too high up in the air, and maybe when the, what we're seeing is when Hill gets to the back bumper, it lifts up the back tires. It just kind of makes him a little bit more squirrely. As we see, I do believe Miller Bonds getting caught here. So a lot of lap traffic definitely coming into play once again as we're 3 wide. As it looks like they're going to get by somewhat safely. I do believe Forrester is getting kicked out now as Christopher Hill has decided to take the middle groove. Forrester now actually linking up with the lap cars.
I would expect this bottom lane to start moving now. I think Christopher Hill is one of the best cars in the field, in all seriousness. If he has a good pusher behind him, I can't quite tell who that driver is behind him. I haven't seen that purple paint scheme yet tonight. But if they can get hooked up really well and Christopher Hill can, get pushed as well as he does the pushing, that inside line is about to fly up towards the front.
That is actually Chris Pfeffer. Yes, that is Chris Pfeffer.
They're gonna
very talented driver himself. I've seen him in competition, not in the NIS, but I've seen him in other races. And he's always been really fast. As you're starting to see, I think that they are going to start to move here very soon. He's a oh my goodness, are you serious?
I don't even, okay. Well, I don't know. They're actually falling back. I think that they'll move as soon as they start trying. I think they might still be in fuel save mode just a little bit. But I know from those two drivers, I've raced many races against them. They're both unbelievably quick. And I know that super speedways can be a little bit different. It brings everybody else back into the fray. So maybe skill isn't as big of a deal here, but I know dang well both of those drivers are extremely talented. And once they really get going and start pushing, they will make their way to the front of this racetrack.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. As soon as Forrester got out of the line of leading that line, it completely changed the speed there. Look at the lap time there last time by from Hill. 48.080 versus Sean Conklin 47.261. That's 0.8, almost a second difference in lap time there. That's got to be on purpose. So I'm really confused. Maybe those guys are getting lined up to think about maybe doing a pit stop. I think green flag stops are going to be happening sooner rather than later. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that no one thinks that they can make it here.
It's going to be close. I could just definitely see a couple of these guys towards the back really saving hard to make sure that they can make it. We see Chris Pfeffer getting to the back of Christopher Hill here really, really hard, going down the front stretch, just trying to give everything that he can. But that outside line is just too fast. They've got too many cars lined up on the outside, and they have no help on the bottom line. I mean, it's just a couple cars lined up right now.
While we have a moment here before we get to those green flag pit stops, if they do come, we're definitely going to figure out what the result of this is going to be here. Does Conklin have enough? I definitely doubt it for him. But while we do have a moment, I think now is the perfect time to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with some more racing action here at Daytona International Speedway. Thanks for watching GridVision.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to GridVision as we see, a big loose condition there from Yuma Yao, who had really revitalized the bottom line and now gets hung out to dry with a very, I do believe, a bad bump possibly. As this has not ended yet, could we possibly see a yellow flag? And we were just talking about as well under the commercial break that a lot of drivers talking on the chat that possibly green flag pit stops on the docket. Do we see a caution before that happens, Austin?
A little more racy. I could definitely see it happening at this point. I mean, they're racing hard there on the bottom line. Finally, we saw the bottom line start moving forward. I'm starting to think Christopher Hill just has a pushing car, right? We saw him push so well. As soon as he had a car in front of him, he could get him up towards about the third, fourth position. But whenever he's out front, that inside line just seems to go backwards. So I want to say that car is just set up to be a great pusher. We saw him do it with Boyd Hogan earlier. There could have been a little bit of teamwork between those two drivers where one of them had a better leading car and one had a better pushing car. But ever since Christopher Hill got back to the lead of that bottom line, it just hasn't worked out. And we finally see him duck back to the top line just so that he can get some of that draft material from the outside line.
You know, I think that you hit the nail right on the head, and that's one thing we really haven't talked about as well tonight is the different gear ratios that a lot of these drivers might be running. I know for a fact that, different setups, are better for, pushing and leading. Oh, almost some contact there. Yuma Yao almost gets up into Christopher Hill there. As Hill, Yao is going to jump up in front of Hill, but when you're out in clean air, some setups can run fourth gear.
Oh my
Or
goodness.
you can get more bogged down in fifth gear when you're out front leading the pack, right?
I'm sorry, I almost stopped listening to what you said because Yuma Yao almost got turned again by Christopher Hill on the outside line. I about freaked out. I thought Yuma Yao was going around for just about the third time in one lap off the bumper of Christopher Hill. Oh my goodness. But yeah, you said something about gearing ratios. Yeah, some of these guys are running fourth gear, some of them are running fifth. Just depends on whether you want to be a pusher or a leader. And there's probably a couple other factors in there too. But at this point, finally, we've seen the bottom line. Jose Acosta has been giving, and he's 2 laps down, but Jose Acosta has been giving a huge push to Chris Pfeffer here on the inside line, followed by another lap car of Heath Snyder. Both of those guys are trying to get back into the middle of this event. Even though, like I said, Jose's 2 laps down, if he can get one of those laps back just by being the leader whenever a caution comes out, he could absolutely have another caution to lead into a green-white-checkered that would put him on the lead lap. And we saw at Atlanta a couple weeks ago, maybe a month and a half at this point. Nicholas Roman, he was at the back end of the lead lap. He's running P2 right now, but he was at the back end of the lead lap and ended up getting a caution towards the end of the race, like with 5 laps to go, 10 laps to go. And through the next 2 cautions, he went from 30th to 1st coming out of the final corner of the final lap. So at Daytona, it's just never over. Even if you're a couple laps down, somehow you can find your way back up to the front. And that's what we're seeing Jose Acosta try to do here on the inside in the 4th position of the inside line, even though he's actually running P29 on the racetrack.
Yeah, I mean, don't count these guys out. I mean, if you can get your lap back and a caution comes out, you just want to make sure you're in front of that caution. That's the big thing here. And a big wiggles there. There goes, I do believe, a car going sideways. I do believe that's Chris Pfeffer that gets kicked off of the racetrack down into the tri-oval, or into the grass, I should say. Almost had to be forced down pit road. So wonder that didn't lead to a caution. As we see, of course, a big change here. Sheik Conklin, of course, and Roman have moved to the bottom line to block that line. But I don't know what just happened there. That was an interesting development.
Looks like Brad Newman came down into the bottom line. We're going to get a replay here. Looking back at it, coming out of turn number 4, Brad Newman gets down to the inside line in front of Jose Acosta, kind of breaks up that outside train. Let's see, coming off of turn number 4, he just got to the left rear bumper of Chris Pfeffer and turned him around towards the inside wall. Chris does a great job not hitting the inside wall. That is so difficult to do. He's pointed 90 degrees sideways, going straight into the inside wall. Luckily, he was able to keep that Taylor Swift machine very nice and clean. Didn't damage Taylor Swift.
We got problems in the mid-pack here. Caution is out. Brian Young, I do believe, involved in this. The 27 of Benjamin Forrester. And this is going to be possibly what some of these drivers needed to get back on the lead lap. Also, Christopher Hill, I do believe, involved as well. See the 41, or I do believe that's actually the 20. I think that was actually, if I'm not mistaken, Nathan Lyon as well. So big accident causing not as much damage as I suspected, though. I think we're going to take a look back, see exactly what happened here, but it kind of happened in the mid-pack. Lots of scrambling going on right here. Is there 3 wide right there? You believe that was Forrester got into the right rear, I do believe. I'm trying to figure out who that driver he right reared was.
Well, he got Travis Kranberg 3 wide, and Kranberg came down and just kind of closed the door whenever it wasn't available. And that's irritating to watch because Kranberg was 12 laps down. So
that's a good point. Yeah, I think Forrester really didn't do anything wrong there. He was just holding his line, and Travis came down on him, and dang, to be 12 laps down and cause an accident like that, it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, if I'm the back half of the field, I'm pretty upset at Travis here. I mean, being 12 laps down, I mean, he's definitely trying to block the run, but if you're 12 down, I mean, just give it up at this point, right? There's only 9 laps to go. There's no way that you're getting 12 laps back. I was talking about Acosta maybe getting 2 back. He's actually 3 down, so he probably couldn't either. But you know, if you're 1 or 2 down, I have absolutely no problem with that move. You're trying to get your lap back. You're trying to get the lucky dog. But if you're 12 down, come on.
You know that save though, Chris Pfeffer. I mean, Pfeffer had gotten turned coming onto the tri-oval and you know had lost the draft completely. That caution was somewhat perfect for the Swifty race car.
Yeah, no kidding. Good job for Taylor Swift there. Luckily, you know, maybe she'll lower the price of her tickets on concerts again. You know, just off of this. You know, if Chris Pfeffer gets her face in victory lane, maybe she'll lower the ticket prices. I would be here for that.
And some drivers staying out, going to get some laps back, and you could tell these guys definitely could not make it on fuel, as everyone is filing down pit road, except for I do believe the cars that are a lap down. So I think this answers the question: could these guys make it or not?
Yeah, I believe who is it that gets the lap back?
Oh,
Is it Heath
Conklin
Snyder?
misses his box. That's going to be a big deal.
That is definitely unfortunate for Sean Conklin, but he's still going to get a splash of gas and come out about 5th. Yeah, it looks like he's going to come out 5th out of the cars that pitted. But Heath Snyder back on the lead lap. We're going to be running 24th position. And I mentioned earlier with Nicholas Vroman at Atlanta, you know, he came from 30th to 1st in about 5 laps, including a green-white-checkered. So a car getting his lap back here in 24th. Now with the pack bunched up to where nobody's going to be saving gas, it really gives the opportunity to anybody that is still in the lead lap at this point, right? I wouldn't be willing to say that anybody out of the lead lap cars right now is out of this race. I think all of them are in it. Any single one of them could win this race, especially because the last lap at these super speedways are just insane. We could see a wreck down the backstretch for the lead that takes out 20 cars, and the car in 21st win the race. And you know, I'm here for it.
Yeah, go ahead and warm up your pipes. I know you're usually a big screamer.
I will be screaming if we see a last lap wreck like that.
And I do want to mention as well, I had said that the only drivers that stayed out were a lap down. And we actually have seen Joshua Watson, Jacob Klein, Jacob Snyder, of course, I do believe he was our pole sitter tonight, Connor Trafari, Joseph, and Maggie McGuire. All these drivers have stayed out. They're about 36 to 37 laps into their run, you know, on fuel. So do they have enough to make it? If they do, this could be a totally different race because we know tires don't mean a whole heck of a lot here. Could this race win go to a driver that just took a gamble here?
It absolutely could. I think we're going to see him save gas heavily here because I mean they're cutting it close. But if they save that entire run like we saw a lot of these guys do, you know, you could save a lot of gas under caution. As I believe we're coming to 1 to go. I can't say for sure, but if we are coming to 1 to go here, it probably hurts the leaders more than anything. Because they would like to have a little bit more time to save gas, but the lights on the top of the pace car do go out. We are at 1 to go, so that is going to, you know, kind of make it a little sketchy for some of these guys that are saving gas. But at this point, if they're saving or if they're staying out at this point, they can see how much gas they have left. They know how close they are. I imagine they know that they can make it if they're still out on the racetrack.
Well, I know sometimes iRacing can you know, misrepresent how much gas you really have. It's usually estimated based on how your engine is performing at that moment. You could definitely see, look at that. I like what I'm seeing from Joseph. That he's doing what he has to do right now. He's running on the apron. I'm assuming he's probably clutching it, just letting it coast for a second until he gets it fired back up. I like what I'm seeing there. He's taking the shorter distance around. You could tell he's very close to running out of gas. These guys are going to have to make it 6 laps under green flag conditions.
Yeah, a lot of people do that in real life racing to keep the fuel pickup on the right side of the car. That's where the fuel pickup happens to be on these Cup Series vehicles. So you want to, I don't know, you want to keep the fuel to the right of the race car. Obviously, whenever you're on the banking, it flows down to the left just due to gravity. I don't think that matters on iRacing, but as you mentioned, he's taking the shortest distance around the racetrack and clutching it in, trying to make sure he saves as much gas as he can. I imagine we'll see him do it again in 3 and 4, as Joshua Watson actually does the same thing, also in the lead. You know, I just think that's probably the smart call. You make sure, I mean, like you said, every little drop matters. If they think that they're a 10th of a lap short, this little bit of extra saving towards the bottom of the apron could absolutely make it to where they don't run out until right at the line if they're, you know, just kind of close at this point. But, man, We've got 4 Ryko cars lined up on the inside line.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, imagine if you're coming out of turn 4 and you run out of gas. I mean, a lot of other tracks, you could possibly coast it there and still win the race. That's not happening at Daytona. And a lot of times as well, if those guys run out of gas right here in this pack, that's going to cause a huge wreck. as well, as the green flag is going to come out for what could be the final time. Joshua Watson up through the gears. We're already seeing drivers peeking out, trying to make moves. I do believe Brad Newman trying to peek out a little bit as well.
I think it's a little hopeful to say that this is going to be our last restart. I think we're going to see some argy-bargy. We're going to see some people hitting some people in ways that they should not do it. The drafts or the bumps are going to get worse through the middle of the corner. We see 4 Ryko cars be able to clear the top line as Matt Hollabaugh is kind of stuck in a Ryko sandwich here on the bottom, 4 in front and 2 behind.
Yeah, top line is definitely somewhat disintegrated, but we're starting to see them come back to fruition, as I do believe that's Connor Trafari and Jacob Klein on the top, making some big moves here as they come side by side, I do believe, with 3rd place. So we're seeing some names we haven't seen a whole lot of, as we see, I do believe, a big move to the high side. There goes Joseph. Joshua Watson decides to jump up as well, as we got 3 wide. Jacob Klein, of course, leading that top groove, as it looks like the 3 wide has disintegrated. 2 wide now, as man, these guys are just moving all around. Musical chairs between the lines.
Oh, in the middle of turn number 1 and 2. The 27 gets turned off the nose of Jacob Schneider going into the corner, and we've got a huge accident on the middle of turns 1 and 2 in the banking. I can't tell who all went around, but that's going to completely shuffle up our field.
Tommy Gossett, I definitely see him. He was involved in that accident there. So, yeah, definitely a big one right there that is going to bring out yet another caution. I think that brings us to possibly green-white-checkered territory. As we take another look back at this, I'm glad you spotted it as we see Benjamin Forster. Oh, man, he kind of just did what he had done to him a little bit earlier.
Yeah, he just came across the nose of Jacob Schneider. There's nothing Schneider could do. He was down there. I mean, he was barely down there, but he was down there. If somebody is barely, like, even with your bumper in iRacing, your spotter tells you inside. And whenever you hear inside, especially whenever you have no help, you don't have the momentum. The inside line had the momentum against Forster. You've really, well, I say the momentum, but he's got no help behind, right? He's got nothing, and he just kind of cuts across Schneider's nose entering the turn number 1 there, and Schneider really just didn't have anything to do. Yeah, he's not all the way on the yellow line, but you don't have to be. Even whenever you're 3 wide, you don't have to be all the way on that yellow line. I would put most of that on Forster there in the 27 coming down across Jacob Schneider entering the corner.
No, yeah, I agree 100%. And even if the spotter was calling the 27 clear right there, because of how different the momentums are at tracks like this, I mean, even if by the time the spotter even finishes saying clear, you're probably not clear anymore. That's one thing that's kind of, that's pretty prevalent, I'd say, at tracks like this. So, and Forster had a really good run. I mean, he just was taking the run where you could get it. But he did try to clear himself on Schneider, and unfortunately just did not get clear. And it's just unfortunate to see that for sure. Schneider, of course, who started on the pole, it's a heartbreaker for that driver. As I do believe he is going to stay on the lead lap, though. He's back in 16th.
Yeah, but he took a hard hit into the outside wall, so I think that he's going to, not done, obviously. Like you said, he stayed on the racetrack, but that's going to kill his hopes for the win. And we saw he was kind of the odd man out of the Ryko group, and everybody wrecked in front of him, or not wrecked in front of him, but everybody got kind of shuffled in front of him as the lead was changing through the tri-oval. We saw that Schneider was kind of the one guy that was left out, and as he got left out through the other guys, I think it was Matt Hollabaugh that took him 3 wide, and left him on the inside line with no help. He just fell back further through the field, and then somebody clears himself across Jacob's nose and takes Jacob out of the running for the race. So really heartbreaking for Schneider. It looked like he was going to have a chance to win this race here late, but that caution, I think that really helps a lot of these guys that were saving. We're seeing Joseph, he's staying on the banking, but I bet he's still saving. And Joshua Watson, again, running that inside line around the apron, clutching just to make sure that he can save as much fuel as possible. I want to say this caution is going to give him the amount of fuel to finish the race unless we get another caution and get to a green-white-checkered.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. I was like, there's a big but that we got to worry about here. If this is helping them, depending on if the pace car lights go out this time by, which would signify, I do believe, an unofficial green-white-checkered, we would end this race under the schedule 80 laps. Of course, if we do have yet another caution and don't make that white flag, those guys are pretty much up the creek. That really puts this ball in someone else's court, because those guys probably won't be able to make it under green-white-checkered conditions.
Well, I would like to correct you just a little bit. This is actually adding 1 lap. It will be an official green-white-checkered.
Oh.
They're going to be taking 2 to green here at the line. So the pace car, if it takes its lights out, it would then be them restarting with 1 lap to go. So they will have an official green-white-checkered here. So this does extend it 1 lap, but you can save so much gas under caution that I still think that this one was a net positive, just barely, because of how much they can save. But
no, I think
if we
you're right.
get one more, I think they are screwed.
Yeah, never correct me again, though. No, I'm just playing.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you caught that. I think if I'm not mistaken as well, I think we have 3 possible green white checkers, so we're going to be using one. We know for sure. So that's interesting. But yeah, like you said, it would altogether be a positive here because these guys are able to save right now. Do we see the white flag? We're going to have to wait and see as we see the pace car lights do go off. So yes, you're right. 81 laps we will be completing for now. Could we get some more in? We're definitely going to find out.
Who would you be picking right now? With who we've got towards the front of the field, who would you be picking? Who's your one to watch?
I think we're going to have a caution. So I think that these guys that can't make it, or I think these guys that are on this old, with this gas, I think that I count them out right now. I'm picking, Conklin. I got Conklin.
I think that's a good pick. We saw how fast Sean Conklin was last week at Watkins Glen, and he was leading a lot of this race here towards the ending. The last 30 laps or so, he was leading a lot of it. I'm probably going to go Nicholas Vroman. I think Vroman's probably got the, I don't know. I think he's probably got the most super speedway experience along with talent throughout the field, and he's lining up on the front row. So I would probably have to pick Nicholas Vroman. My heart is telling me Matt Hollabaugh. I want to see that green machine in victory lane there from the 3rd position. And of course, our stupid C-tier producer goes straight to the Taylor Swift car, and he's calling Chris Pfeffer for the win. I guess he's a Swiftie.
He's the Swiftie, I guess. I mean, if I had a second guy that I would think might Brad Newman. He's been really, really good as well. I think it could be somebody outside of the top 10 that we're not thinking of, because I think a lot of these drivers are not going to make it to that white flag lap. It's going to be anybody's go. This is going to be nuts. I am looking forward to this 2 laps we're getting ready to do here. As
I'm still worried about Joseph.
He is saving so much. He's like, I got to save. I have to.
That's scary.
But here we go. Let's see exactly what happens. We're getting ready to unwrap this present here on this lovely Friday night. As the pace car dips down pit road, and Joseph Squared up through the gears. Green flag is back out in the air here as we tackle green-white-checkered number 1. And Joseph Squared up to the top side. Matt Hollenbach, I do believe, on the bottom here, leading the bottom group, who's being pushed by Conklin. Joseph down to block the bottom line.
Sean Conklin gave Matt Hollabaugh a huge shove on that restart. I mean, he was just all over his back bumper the entire time. Joseph Squared went to the top side just to cover off Nicholas Vroman, but that did leave the bottom side open for just a little bit as Matt Hollabaugh gets just a little loose coming out of the corner. They're pushing, they're bumping, they're banging all the way down the backstretch. Everybody's shuffling for position. Brandon Bike trying to look to the middle lane, trying to make something happen as Joseph goes back to the inside line to block Matt Hollabaugh, his run going down into turn number 3, and that outside line's falling back just a little bit.
Do we see the white flag? We're getting ready to find out as we're coming out of turn number 4 onto the front stretch. Oh, there are problems already. Matt Hackenbach out to the outside wall, and I do believe the caution flag is going to fly, and we are going to see green-white's checkered attempt number 2. As, man, we got so close to possibly seeing the white flag. They were getting ready to wave it, but they grabbed the yellow instead as, unfortunately, Hackenbach involved in that crash. I know your heart's got to be broken on that one.
That's a hard one. I feel like, Matt barely got to Joseph Squared's outside quarter panel. He was there. I don't know if Joseph actually turned the wheel right or if it was contact from Hollabaugh on his right rear that moved him up the racetrack. It looks like Joseph threw a bad block, if I'm being serious. Joseph came up, just kind of shoved Hollabaugh. He's barely got any overlap on his back bumper. But the overlap is there, and he just pushes Hollabaugh up into Nicholas Vroman. And if I'm Joseph Squared, I think that's a really bad move because we've seen how hard he had to save gas. And now he's got to make it another green-white-checkered without having to pit.
I'm looking at it slow-mo here. It almost looks like Hackenbach, I think, might have touched Joseph. And maybe, I don't know, it could be a combination there. Because it looks like Hackenbach kind of was pushing. Yeah, this isn't. It was he turning up, but I guarantee. I'll tell you this. Looking at the results of this, look at how many cars were involved in this. If this was not the big one, I don't know what is.
Looking at the replay from Joseph Squared's cockpit that I'm looking at right now. I don't know if we're going to get the view on the broadcast, but if we do here, I believe our producer's trying to pull it up. Yeah, we got another replay going. You're going to see a little twitch of the wheel to the right. Very last second. Oh, that's not his cockpit. But, here we go. You're going to see a little twitch to the right There, right there. You saw that twitch to the right. He came off that yellow line. As soon as he made that twitch to the right, that's whenever he came up across Matt Hollabaw's nose and pushed him to the outside. So I hate to say it, but I feel like I have to put that more on Joseph. I mean, it's so tight, right? You're coming to the white flag for a super speedway, so I totally understand going for that block. But if he is really close on fuel, I think that that's the wrong call to make. As we see, he's still trying to clutch and save on the inside of the apron in turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, I don't think he has any hope. I don't think he has any hope right now at all, and that is just an unfortunate circumstance that I think he's going to end up running out of gas, and it's just unfortunate to say the least. But I mean, just a little twitch is all it takes, and also I think that Matthew was being also pushed from behind and had gotten a little bit loose as well. So I think there was a lot of variables. There was a lot of layers to that onion dip right there.
Sucks. Just about all of our drivers got taken out in that, right?
That was a huge wreck.
You had originally said Conklin, but your second guy was Brad Newman. He got killed. My pick, Nicholas Roman, got killed, and my second pick of Hollabaugh got killed. So now we've just got you picking Sean Conklin and our freaking producer picking the Taylor Swift machine.
He's still in it. He's up to 5th. What a recovery for the 8th machine of Chris Pfeffer.
I like Chris Pfeffer. I think he's a great driver. He's a fast guy. I have nothing against Taylor Swift. It's just a little basic. I gotta say, it's just a little basic.
Oh, I'm sure it's just a joke. He's running it as a joke.
Sure.
But and also this is brought. I'm telling there's a lot of opportunity here tonight. I do believe for some drivers that have I don't know. We really haven't had the spotlight shine on them in NIS competition. I mean, Mason Tessier haven't really never talked about that driver. He's up in 5th or 4th right now. Brandon Bikey, he's been really, I'd say the spotlight's been on him a little bit because he's been up in the top 10 quite a bit here tonight. But Maggie McGuire, I do believe that driver actually might run out of gas as well. Well, no, I think McGuire actually is on better. No, Maggie McGuire, 46. 46! Wow. Goodness gracious. How are they still driving right now?
Man, Joseph is way past the pace car at this point. He needs to make sure he doesn't get too far out in front, I believe. I think that might be a problem. But I might be wrong on that. I'm not quite sure how that black flag rule works in iRacing, if I'm being honest. But obviously, we can see he's still saving as much as he can. But again, I think that was just a little bit bad of a block, especially. And you know what? If he's got plenty of gas, you know what? Fine. I get it. Like I said, you're racing for the win at the end of a super speedway race. At the end of the day, that's how you got to race these races. But you got to risk, or you got to, mitigate the crash risk if you are, really, really close on fuel. And we are seeing Joseph Squared is really, really close on fuel. I don't know how many times he's been on the apron the last few cautions, but it's been more than a handful.
And he's in the same boat as Maggie McGuire. I mean, 46, 47 laps on his fuel tank. Of course, these cautions have been helping him for sure. But I mean, from what I've been hearing all season or all week long, 40 laps is the estimated. So he's gone quite a bit further than that here, and he's also in the lead of this race. So so that's going to be burning even more gas as well here. So I don't think we're done with a caution flag. I think he could run out of gas, or even just if you ran out of gas on the white flag lap, that would cause a big pileup easily.
I was just about to say, watch out for him running out of gas coming out of turn 4.
That would cause, and that's why I think an unlikely person might win this race if they just survive that crash. As here we go, we're getting ready to find out as the pace car dips down pit road. We're looking through Joseph's cockpit camera as the green flag is out for green-white-checkered attempt number 2. He jumps up in front of Conklin.
Seems to be pretty textbook from Joseph Squared. He loves jumping up to that outside line. And actually, Chris Pfeffer from the 5th position jumps up to the outside line, too. That's going to kill the momentum from the bottom. They are lined up pretty good, but they have lost. Oh, man, Tommy Gossett gets put down to the apron just about there. I can't tell who that shiny blue car is. I think that's Shane Davis. Oh, he just gets about right rear going through the middle of the corner. Joshua Gathride's going to let him in, but my goodness, almost a big accident coming down out of turn number 2 as the leaders are single file up through the 6th position. Joseph Squared and Sean Conklin are the leaders going into turn number 3. Yes, there's a big wreck in the back, going down through the grass of the infield. It looks like we're going to have no caution. I believe that they have cleared the field, but we finally have a move. Daniel Nanny to the inside with Christopher Hill for the 5th position.
Yeah, I'm surprised that didn't bring a caution out. Those guys were driving through the grass, of course, as we see Nanny trying to make something happen. You have to have strength in numbers there, but we know how good of a pusher Hill is. As the white flag is out, Joseph on fumes. Can he win this race? Does Sean Conklin make a last-second move? Mason Terrier, what does he do in that 3 machine as they come out of turn number 2 onto the backstretch? You see a lot of blocking happening as well. Matt Hottenbach is actually back in the fight, I do believe, fighting with, Connor Trafari. Also, Brad Newman, who we talked about, was involved in that accident. He has entered the fray as we see battling side by side. Mason Terrier moving up the top 3 wide. Oh, there goes Terrier sideways. Joseph sideways. Chris Pfeffer in the lead. Will our producer get what he said? Wow, Chris Pfeffer has just won this race. Taylor Swift. Free tickets for everybody.
The freaking Swifties! What is going on, man? How is Chris Pfeffer going to win this race? Our C-tier producer became an A+ tier tonight, calling the perfect winner off of 2 restarts tonight. I cannot believe it. I'm so frustrated. I'm done.
Chris Pfeffer brings it home. Wow. Imagine that. I mean, yeah, and that caution earlier really brought him back to life in this race, and just could have been demotivated, could have given up hope, but no, the Swifties never give up, as he wins this race. As we're going to take a replay as we see Joseph. Did he run out of gas? No, he went to go block Mason Terrier, and then, oh, the Swiftie gets into the rear of Mason Terrier and turns him around. Wow.
Yeah, you could see that was not intentional at all by Pfeffer. You know, obviously he ended up wrecking the guy to win the race, but in all seriousness, he was trying to follow the leader as, you know, I mean, the leader threw a block there late as he should, and obviously...
bad bump, just another bad bump.
You say bad bump, but the leader, or the guy in front of him, turned so hard right to try to get that run around, and whenever you're the car behind you can't break your momentum there, right? You got to try to hold on to his back bumper and continue that run going down the front stretch coming out of turn number 4. So I don't put a ton of blame on Chris Pfeffer. Ultimately, I guess it's his fault, but, you know, you're coming out of turn number 4 in the last lap. You're not going to break the throttle. You're going to try to get into the back of the guy in front of you to give him that push. And it just so happened that the push went wrong, but it went really right for Chris Pfeffer at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. Unfortunate there for Mason Terrier. Let's take a look at the final results here for tonight's race. Of course, Chris Pfeffer, the Swiftie, ends up winning here tonight. Haven't seen him in competition in NIS before, but he's out here tonight, and he's going to get a dub. Second place, Daniel Nanny. Third place, Brad Newman. Fourth place, Sean Conklin. Fifth place, Connor Trafari. Sixth place, Maggie McGuire on had like 48-something laps on their tires and gas. Seventh place, Lataro Lamperti, the Butcher. Eighth place, Shane Davis. Ninth place, is that Shane Van Gisbergen?
No.
Am I looking at the wrong thing here? Actually, that is Matt. Shane Davis is in 8th. Matt Hottenbach in 9th. Christopher Hill in 10th. So my telemetry here is kind of showing a typo there.
11th place, John Whitendorf. 12th, Mason Tessier. 13th, Joshua Gathright. 14th, Jonathan Oshelin. 15th, Jacob Schneider. 16th, Jacob Klein. 17th, Yuma Yao. 18th was Bandon Bikey. As we get our second page going, 19th, Shane Van Gisbergen. 20th place was Tommy Gossett.
Brian Young in 21st. Joseph Squared, 1 lap down in 22nd. Benjamin Forrester, 23rd. Jose Acosta, 24th. Heath Snyder, 25th. Alan Pajari in 26th. Of course, 27th, Joshua Watson. Nicholas Vroman, 28th. Miller Bonds in 29th. And 30th, Travis Kremenborg.
31st, Nathan Lyons. 32nd, Justin Levine. 33rd, Dalton Collins. 34th, Boyd Hogan. 35th, Daniel Thomas. And 36th, Patrick Moose.
Alrighty, and now that we have got through our final results, we'll take one last commercial break, and we'll come back and hopefully talk to some of our podium drivers. We'll be right back.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to GridVision. Man, we just saw a very thrilling conclusion here at Daytona for the NIS race. Of course, we weren't able to get in touch with third and second place. But we were able to get in touch with our winner, the Swifty himself, Chris Pfeffer. Man, what a race, Chris. I mean, we got to say that our producer said that you were going to win this race. And he was right. I mean, how does it feel to come into get that clutch victory at the end there? I mean, it seemed like it almost came at almost the I'd say at the disadvantage I'd say of Mason Tessier there. I mean, you kind of hit him. I know it wasn't your fault necessarily. It was hard to kind of check up that run. Walk us through that ending lap.
Yeah, I was committed to pushing him. I backed up in 1 and 2 to get a big run, and I got to his bumper in the middle of the back. And he moved up to the middle, and I was committed to pushing him to the wins, make sure those Ryko guys didn't win. And one of the Ryko guys came up the block, and he had to jolt up, and we just got a little hooked from it. But yeah, what do you expect, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a big block there at the end. I mean, last lap, kind of to be expected for sure. But you kind of we almost could have discounted you earlier in the race. Because you kind of, I do believe, got turned out of the pack. You were able to narrowly avoid the inside wall. And then a caution came out that kind of saved you as well. I mean, did you think your race chances were over right then?
Nah, I mean, it's restricted play racing. I knew they were just going to keep wrecking. But, yeah, it sucked to get dumped there by another shop guy. But, it is what it is.
But definitely a crazy race out there. I mean, what was your thought process the whole race? I mean, was it what was the preparation? What was the game plan?
Oh, I signed up to make sure I beat Ryko. Yeah, pretty much it. And I beat Ryko, so hell yeah.
Well, simple ambition. Definitely love to hear it for sure. Of course, next week we're going to be heading to the track Too Tough to Tame Darlington. How do you feel about that racetrack? Are you going to show up in NIS competition that week as well?
Nah, nah. I don't. I mean, it's unfortunate, but the shop teams ruin this stuff, man. It's just a billboard for them, and they just stack the stuff and cause wrecks.
I understand, Chris. Well, thanks for joining us to talk with us here after your win. Anything you want to shout? Anybody you want to shout out? I mean, maybe some Taylor Swift fans out there you want to talk to?
Yeah, bro. All our T-Swifties around the country, man. Christopher Matthew Hill, my fellow T-Swifty, and everyone at Legacy, Boyd Hogan, made the freaking peace. And, of course, you guys putting on this broadcast. It's pretty cool.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks for putting on a great show for us. You were definitely one we were watching. Hopefully, we'll get to see you sometime in the future on GridVision.
Yeah, I'll see you at Phoenix.
All righty, that was Chris Pfeffer, our winner here tonight. Definitely a fantastic performance there. He had some choice words to say, Austin, but man, he put on, I think he sent his biggest message, I'd say, on the racetrack.
Oh yeah, for sure. He put on a great performance. We saw him and Christopher Hill working well together earlier in the run, or earlier in the race, and we saw, he mentioned Boyd Hogan building the setup. We saw how well Boyd Hogan was able to get to the front with pushes from Christopher Hill. And I imagine if all three of them were, clean at the end of the race, unfortunately Boyd got taken out from some very unfortunate accidents that he had nothing to do with. So I think that we would have seen all three of those guys up towards the front running for the win here. So unfortunate for the other two, but a really, really good job from Chris Pfeffer to be able to get back into this race after you had mentioned in the interview him getting turned down towards the inside wall there with about 10 laps to go. I mean, you just don't expect to come back from something like that, but it sounded like he never let his head drop, and he knew that because it was Speedway racing that he could, get back in the fight. So great job from Pfeffer there to be able to bring it home with the W.
100%. Great job to all the drivers out there. As we're going to take a look to the future as we've just completed our race at Daytona International Speedway. Of course, I do believe on Sunday we're going to be heading to the Milwaukee Mile in the Global Racing Truck Series. That'll be 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, Tuesday we won't have anything going on with Champion Power Equipment, but Wednesday we will be having some Thunderclap action as we are, I do believe, going into the second race of the round of 8, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at IRP. And, of course, Friday, we're going to continue our coverage of the NIS Series at Darlington Raceway, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be off on Sunday with Global Racing Series because of Labor Day. We'll definitely miss everyone for sure, but make sure you tune in. I know we're not going to have as much racing next week, but definitely we look forward to when we ramp it back up again. But, man, what a race we had tonight. But with that, I do believe that brings us to the conclusion of tonight's broadcast. I do appreciate everyone in the NIS competition, putting on a great show for us. Of course, appreciate Chris Pfeffer coming in and joining us and giving an interview. Of course, congratulations to him as well for picking up the win. And thanks for everybody tuning in tonight as well. I want to thank my co-commentator, Austin Edstrom, also my producer, Austin Derbyshire, and anyone else that's involved with the GridVision family. My name is Brian Britt, and I'll see you next time.